Well, our episode opens to reveal whether or not Holden's message managed to get out.
Ship was destroyed answering a bogus SOS from ship called Skyline.
You know, I think it's just possible that it did. But atrocities, while being bad, doesn't stop life from going on, so Miller's partner goes on with his business, seeing that sex worker from episode 1. But not in order to engage in a special docking procedure of his own. Rather, he's learning Belter from her, the gestures as well as the words. Belters work in space, after all, in big spacesuits, so they need to have a way of communicating ideas visually and with large gestures. So it's a part of that as much as the blend of various language fragments. The business with the Canterbury calls him away. The captain needs to make sure they all get that 1, militants are going to exploit this, but 2, we're not going to Gestapo this. We'll deal with criminals, not pick up people for contempt of cop. What grabs Miller's attention is how the scopuli plays into the drama around the Canterbury, and goes to tell the captain about that, and that all the members of the crew besides Juliet Mao were OPA. Right now, she doesn't give a shit. He'll get his bonus for tracking Julie down, but as far as Ceres is concerned, this is over. But for Holden and company, a whole new world of shit has just begun.
Hey, go ahead. Destroy the evidence. Word's already out.
That is so not helpful. I'm fairly certain that's where helpful goes when it's ready to die. Holden keeps pushing, so the guards get less gentle, and Amos doesn't like that. Mind you, I think he likes that even less. Alex is the only one that's not tossed into a cell. They have him taken away, and no one thinks it's going to be anywhere good. After the titles, the Canterbury is a point of debate among Avasarilla, Aaron Hart, and Admiral Souther. She thinks the series governor's an idiot, and she's probably right. There's been nothing to convince me otherwise. She thinks Mars would do this kind of thing, destroy the Canterbury, in order to destabilize Ceres past his ability to control it, so that the Martians can swoop in and take over. The only choice, she says, is to deploy the fleet, while the Admiral wants to avoid inflaming a situation, especially one predicated entirely upon the assumption that a dishonorably discharged naval officer is telling the truth, or even knows what it is he's talking about. Souther can't support this action, and the Secretary General is going to want something more substantial in order to overrule him. So Avasarilla goes to see an old friend, de Graaf, who is the ambassador to Mars, and invites him and his husband over for dinner. I just hope it doesn't get awkward.
I know what you're thinking. Mormons aren't funny, but we have a comedy night at the Laugh Shack once a week, and I'd love to prove you wrong.
Oh, like that would be. This is just like opening my front door. Look, whoever you are, I don't need a vacuum, don't want to vote, don't want to convert, and I hate the whales. Miller's partner shows that he's wising up, because he takes the guy up on his offer, under the name of their captain.
Now you stay on him, because Captain tends to get kind of forgetful.
Yeah, if you don't hear back from me, just keep trying.
But while this guy is all right, the OPA trying to rile up the crowd is a bit of a problem, and gets carted away. But that leaves an opening for Miller to talk with his former whatever they were about how something that Juliet Mao did, well, it's bothering her. Something about this case. He wants to go look into it and asks her to cover for him. So while he sees to that, Holden gets summoned for an interrogation. Tarantula egg? I'm trying to cut back myself. That's actually a drug to make him more capable of reading Holden's responses. Try to see whether or not he's telling the truth by all the other parts of what he does. He asks about Holden's personal life, growing up on a farm in Montana with 8 parents, allowing him to throw Holden off. But Holden sticks to what he knows and with what he thinks he knows. He says he never went to Phoebe Station and is confused at the thought of Naomi being OPA, even though she has 2 advanced degrees and was overqualified for her job on the Canterbury by an order of magnitude.
Extraordinary improvisational expertise for you and your crew members simply to survive, let alone restore your antenna array. These are the hallmark skill sets of terrorists.
Yeah, but I help by kicking it. Speaking of kicking, Miller's doing that to a hornet's nest by bringing a bunch of cops into a dock in order to look for contraband. But that is by design. What he wants is a meeting with Anderson Dawes in the OPA, and this is a nice way to get attention. Well, it's an effective way. It's probably not a nice one. Meanwhile, on Earth...
Oh, please don't tell me I'm drinking your pee, because it's delicious.
Save me from myself. When the normal people head off, the politicians stay to discuss the situation with Mars. Avasarala mentions her theory about Mars working with the OPA and plotting to take over Ceres. She uses we a lot, as if there was some kind of consensus, but apparently she's using it in the royal sense because it's really just her. Which is appropriate because she's royally screwing this guy over right now. Back on the Donnager, Shed is talking about his experience with Martian culture, but the real ambassador of goodwill is Amos.
I bet those pretty tin suits bind up something awful in the crotch.
And with that, Naomi is the next one to be taken away. As for Holden, he's put in a waiting room or something with Alex, who's changed into a Martian uniform. He actually served 20 years with honor, so they let him get cleaned up out of respect for his past service. The four of them didn't know that about him, but as he turns it around, he didn't know anything about any of them either. Like Holden being dishonorably discharged, like Naomi's hints of being OPA, and how he doesn't accept because as a reason for Mars to destroy the Canterbury. The OPA doing it makes way more sense. After all, that beacon clearly wanted to be found. Now it's creating a shitstorm. Matter of fact, a crewman on a Martian transport gets beaten up by belters who refuse to top off their water tanks. Miller threatens to put the lead hooligan down, but luckily Anderson Dawes arrives to address the situation. Don't let anger make you act like an animal. It only encourages others to see you as an animal. Even you, Dog McPoochface, even you. This gives Miller a chance to talk to Anderson Dawes about the scapulae and Juliet Mao, but Dawes is more interested in knowing if Miller can be bought to help them out. It's not as if there's a reason for loyalty to the corporation that runs the police force or the Earth that hired them for that job. He doesn't realize, though, that Miller is past the paycheck phase of this because he's grown fascinated with her, and he wants to see this through because he doesn't want Julie Mao to meet a bad end out here. Back on the Donnager, Naomi is interrogated, and it's pointed out what the Canterbury captain had said. Odds are that a beacon like that would be pirate bait, so the captain wouldn't just go and do that. Whoever logged that distress signal had to have been knowing that they were leading them into something. So, who did it? Who's the one who made them answer? He deduces from her reactions that it was Holden, a survivor, the one who had found the beacon, someone dishonorably discharged, and someone who hasn't been back to Earth in 12 years. And, of course, survived the attack. Oh, and who made sure to very loudly declare that this was all Mars's fault. Man, there's a lot more circumstantial evidence pointing towards Holden than to Mars right now. Even I'm starting to be convinced. But Amos says these people will say anything.
They told me that you faked your medical records and signed on to the Cant to get away from a drug dealer who wanted you dead.
Well, that's true.
They'll say anything, even the truth, those bastards. Naomi returns, and the first thing out of Holden's mouth for her is, "Are you OPA?" Things divide quickly, with Holden and Alex on one side, Naomi and Amos on the other, and Shed trying to be the voice of, "Let's not kill each other right now." When things get physical, Holden says that he's ready to talk. I mean, to the Martians, not to Amos. He says he will do so long as it's to the captain of the ship, not the maker of the crunchy cereal. Back on Earth, turns out the ambassador contacted his Martian counterpart about the stealth ship, and suddenly the 9 facilities that dealt with stealth tech are buzzing with activity. A surprising fact, considering they thought there were only 6 of them. But the fact that it happened suggests that this response was an inventory, making sure that nothing was missing. And if suggesting the OPA had gotten stealth from Martians makes them do that, it would mean that they didn't give them stealth tech. So, rather than sniffing out a Martian plot, Avasarala had unwittingly swallowed the narrative being sold about Mars in order to start a war. And the face of that narrative is now walking in to speak to the captain of the Martian flagship. It's a wonder he's not being horsewhipped onto the bridge. She wants Holden to recant. He says he'll say anything if she can guarantee their safety. Anything at all.
that the Canterbury was destroyed through the actions of Naomi Nagata, an operative of an OPA sleeper cell.
Holden can accept that Naomi is OPA, but not that this was some plot by her. The captain brings up an unidentified ship that's coming at them right now. It's not Martian, it's not UN, so that's a problem. But there's one on Ceres too. Miller is trying to pull some Star Trek stuff to figure out where the Scopulized flight path was, but the result seems to be space. After watching footage of Julie malplanting a guy who tried getting too friendly, Miller gets called down to be on hand for the riot. Well, no, it's not a riot, it's a... Go home! No, that's a riot. On Earth, the ambassador gets a visit from Avasarala, which comes with wine, but only to help choke down the bad news he's already gotten. His diplomatic credentials were revoked and he was banned from Mars for life. It bothers him tremendously because Mars has a dream, see, and their society pursues it, and that dream is something beautiful, while Earth is an overcrowded concrete place devoid of dreams anymore. I'm trying not to make another New Jersey joke. I don't want to seem like I'm in a rut. The ambassador also shares an anecdote from her childhood, when he saw her playful way of trying to win a hand of cards by calling a version of the game that depended on running to a tree first. Like her father, he says, Avasarala will do anything to win. As we wrap up Ceres, Miller tracks down another possible lead, someone who agreed to be Julia's Sherpa, only he's dead now, and probably that trail with him. And speaking of ends, let's see how Miller's partner is doing applying his Belcher language studies. I'm afraid in this case I'm going to have to grade the test on a pass-fail. What does this mean? Let's find out in Part 4.